So you're listening, and I don't know the exact demographics, but hopefully you're investing somehow, somewhere, and saving for retirement, because one thing that we definitely want to do is ensure that people live long, healthy, happy lives. And to do that, you got to work your tail off and save your money so that, taxpayers aren't necessarily fully funding all of what you need to do to sustain life and be happy. But, Social Security is not going to cut it for everybody. So to talk more about how your money's doing and the different phases of life out there, because I know that there's listeners who are 30 plus years old, listeners who are 50 plus years old, listeners who are 60 plus years old, if not older, and they've been watching the markets lately. And to give us a little bit more perspective here is what's going on with the markets and maybe how you can be thinking ahead to what best to do to come out on top of all of this is Jim Hamrick. He is with Edward Jones. You hear Edward Jones here, of course, on WMAY. With the market report at 9 o'clock news and so on. But he joins us in studio here on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. Jim, thanks for taking time. How you doing today?
Well, you bet. Doing great, Greg. Happy to be here. And
absolutely.
A chance to talk to folks as things are in a little bit of turmoil in people's minds.
So how are the markets doing? I haven't looked at the latest. Is the trend up? Is the trend down? Where are we at?
Yeah. Well, we've come back a little bit from the down drops 3 or 4 weeks ago, kind of the bottom of things for the time being. This week has been a little bit more of a downturn again. At one point, we were down about 16% on the S&P. We're more like about 10, 12 right now. And, what people have to keep in mind is this is very short term. The market reacting to emotions and current events. And for working on retirement, you have to keep a long-term perspective on what you're doing, establish some goals, and stick to those goals.
So, Jim, when it comes to the different phases of life, right? I mean, I'm probably going to work until I die, quite frankly. But, at some point I do want to retire. I'm investing. I've got my employer matching. I've got, I don't know if you advise on it or not, but I do invest in digital currencies to a degree. It's not nearly what my portfolio is. But what are some of the tips that people my age who still have, several decades left of work, but they're investing? What do we do? Just sit back and make sure that who's managing our money is on top of things? Or how do we do that if we're not market savvy, so to speak?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to get started. The younger you start, the better you're going to be, but it's never too late. And what you want to do is identify where you're trying to get to, what your goals are, and then how am I going to get there? And you're not going to get there by watching the short-term swings and the emotional movements of today's headlines. You're going to get there by investing in a broad, diversified portfolio with a risk level that you're comfortable with in the short term, but are going to make sure that you're not overreacting to every short-term movement. The goal here is to make a good life for yourself and your family and your health, and worrying over markets every little move isn't going to do the trick.
Well, especially early on, when people are investing and looking to retire eventually. What about those who are on the cusp of retirement and are hoping to start, drawing from that soon and not having to work? What kind of things should they be looking out for when it comes to managing their money?
Well, that's a great question, because as you're accumulating money, markets really don't, the timing really doesn't make a difference. When you are taking money away from your investments, if you have a downturn right when you get started, you are taking away from money that can't remain invested during a downturn. So the sequence of returns as you're adding money is completely insignificant. What's really important is that you have safe, stable kind of investments. I really like a bucket list, different buckets. We want to keep our long-term money exposed to growth, and we can handle some downturns. We want to have 2 or 3 years worth of very stable investments as we're taking money from it, That way, you just don't worry about the headlines. We can go forward for a year or two, drawing from those stable investments, still keep everything else ready to ride the storm.
So like you said, I mean, it's almost like when people are in that element of getting ready to retire or at the beginning stage of retirement, they need to sit down with their financial advisor and discuss kind of what you're talking about, these different buckets or tranches of funds. They've got all this money that they want to live on for the rest of their life, but they need to be thinking about, well, you've got long-term investments, and that's we want that to kind of just not be touched at all. Is that a convoluted process, or is it pretty simple when working with a financial advisor?
No, that's a pretty simple. Seems like there's a lot of moving parts to the individual investor, but it's really a pretty simple process.
And that's what you guys are there for, right? I mean, that's what Edward Jones is, and other investment firms are all about, is there to facilitate those transactions. We're talking with Jim Hamrick, Edward Jones Investments. He of course, locally handles a lot of retirement accounts for people. And, we've talked about the younger people who are looking to invest. We've talked about the people who are just about to retire. What about those who've been retired for a bit? Is it still kind of the same philosophy of, make sure you've got long-term investments that are solid, and then we'll draw from some smaller funds for your day-to-day expense? Right.
That's exactly the thing. Typically, when I'm talking to somebody getting near retirement or establishing this from the get-go, they kind of have this thing. Well, I'll stay heavily invested until I retire. Then I've got to go all to cash. No. That's where the buckets come in handy as well. Going forward, as you're spending the money down, income stream is what we've created. We've been trying to create growth, but we want to create dependable assets to give us an income stream. And we want to make sure you don't outlive your money, and nobody knows when that day might come, but we have a good idea on averages. The idea then is to keep some of that money growing. You don't just pull the plug on everything and go to all cash, and have enough 2 to 3 years to give you that good income you need, no matter what the markets are doing.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this question necessarily, because it can get kind of into the weeds, but if people have pension funds, and like I know the state of Illinois has pension buyout plans, right, where it's like, hey, we'll buy you out for, like, I don't know the exact percentages, but it's like 80% of what you would have gotten, but that's cash now. So if people do take that and they come into, or they get an inheritance, and they come into a serious amount of cash, how should they best manage that in those 3 different stages of life that we've laid out there?
Yeah, that's really important, to sit down and talk with a professional about that. Again, the process isn't really overly involved, but it is detailed, and we've got to establish where you're at now, where do you want to be, and how we can best protect that stash of money that you may have come into. Not a fan of the buyouts, at least from the consumer point of view. They can help our state greatly in the long run, but you really need to crunch the numbers, and then it's just math. And you also have to look at your own health and well-being. Like you said, that is money in your pocket, not waiting for gratification down the road. Right. So there is some value there in the right circumstances.
Right. Jim, if people want more information on investing, of course, they can listen in every weekday morning. Edward Jones with the Market Report here on WMAY. But if they want to get a hold of you directly, how can they do that, or some of your other teammates at Edward Jones?
Well, we really welcome that. We run many offices right here in Springfield. I, along with my branch office administrator, Mila Wilkin, we run the branch at Monroe and Lawrence, and we are welcome to welcome people to give us a call, set up a little appointment. Never costs anything for the initial consultation. We do business both on a fee-based, fiduciary base, and we also do some transactional-based, depending on what the client would really like. But it never costs anything to talk with us. I'd urge you to give our office a call at 217-726-2288, and we'll set up a meeting and kind of Find out where you are now and where do you want to be and how do we get there.
Jim Hamrick, Edward Jones Investment, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us. Let's talk again soon, and maybe get to your market picks. I don't know if you guys ever who's that on the cable shows who's buy.
Right.
Jim, I can't remember his name, but he told people to buy Netflix and then it plummeted or something. I don't know. You don't want to do that. That's why you want to have a financial advisor. Just take it steady. All right, keep funding your retirement and just take it steady.
We call that financial pornography in our business. I used to watch and listen.
The hucksters out there.
I used to watch and listen to know what they were having to say, and I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's probably best.
Right.
That's probably best. Jim Hamrick, greatly appreciate it. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Sounds real good.
It is WMAY now at 7:49. Let's take a look at